think if you read some of the more radical feminist philosophy on this idea of decorum and polite,
Natalie, you lost our entire Republican audience right there.
All 4 of them. Sorry, guys. Well, tough shit. We're gonna have a little lesson here then. No, if you study like the great works of a lot of radical feminists, in particular Black and brown feminists, they talk a lot about this idea of politeness and decorum around politics and political speak, and who is allowed to be polite and who's supposed to be polite. But we've moved beyond Democrat and Republican. I believe we're in a very different place, and there is no place in my mind to be polite with somebody who does not think that I deserve the same rights over my body as a corpse, right? So for me, the decorum went out the window when a lot of these laws were actually starting to be put in place that were actually creating a situation where I no longer now have the same rights as I did 2 years ago, and that my niece and my sister and my friends and their daughters and their children do not have the same rights. So fuck your politeness around politics and your decorum around it. We are fighting for literally the soul of a nation right now, and I'm not being dramatic. I really think it's at that level, and I get really frustrated. I've done a few shows, not with you guys, but there have been a few shows that I've done where they've said to me, I think you're being dramatic around JD Vance's rhetoric, or Donald Trump's really not that bad. No, they really are that bad. They're actually worse than what I'm saying and what I'm speaking to. And they're not just coming for obviously women. They're coming for Black and brown people. They're coming for the working class. They're literally trying to turn this into a white Christian nationalist nation. And we have to wake up. And I was actually really glad to see Biden finally find a backbone and call it out, because as the leader of this nation, there should be no room for this in our political discourse. And so when we're talking about all of these things, why is it that Democrats always have to take the high road? Why is it when they go low, we go high? I think we should be mirroring it back to them and giving it back to them, because like I said, they fall like a house of cards the minute you pull it out. And the only way I have ever found to defeat a bully is to show your teeth. And so that's what I think we need to be doing to these people.
Natalie, I could not agree more. I have grown quite weary of this asymmetrical warfare that it's expected from us, because we're like they go low, we go high. Fuck that. I'm tired of it. I'm done. I did a video a while ago, and I was making fun of Elon Musk with his goofy little jumps, like in the shape of an X, like he does all the time. And I had some guy comment, it's like, oh, so we're making fun of autistic people now? I was like, yeah, you can go to hell. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I was like, I told him, I was like, what I said is like, I'm not that kind of liberal. That shit doesn't work on me. Like, I will absolutely like go in the mud and just use the same warfare that you're using. I'm not going to be limiting myself by these, they love to throw out, is this so much for the tolerant left? No, buddy, this is the intolerant left. All right. I'm intolerant of a billion different things, and fascist, racist, sexist, homophobic, misogynistic rhetoric, that is on the list. I have no quarter for this shit. I mean, this is like, because think of how absurd it is. Because this is treating like these disagreements like they're sports teams. Yeah. That, you like the Niners and I like the Cowboys, and so I'm not going to call you a piece of shit. I mean, that doesn't seem fair. This is not what we're talking about. These are people's lives on the line here, and it's especially rich coming from conservatives. Like John said, they don't actually care about it. They're just trying to find a way to cry bully. They want you see. They say fuck your feelings. Their feelings, on the other hand, are very delicate. They need to be pampered. Yeah, absolutely. Their feelings need to be protected at all costs. Off the top of my head, when we brought this up, I wrote down all the things I could think of. Oh, before I get there, Do you remember the Dark Brandon speech where Joe Biden had like the red shit in the background and everything, and he's doing his
that I thought was very weird, TJ. I thought that was
weird.
quite weird that he chose like the
very
V for
strange
Vendetta background.
Exactly.
It was
Yeah.
very weird.
That was odd. It was
One
like
of
a Star
his
Wars
interns definitely thought that would be so cool and go
They
viral.
did.
That's what that was.
It did
It
go
did,
viral. Like, I
it
do admit.
did.
And but one thing he said was, I don't know if you guys remember this, where he mentioned how the MAGA Republicans, which once again I fucking hate that he specifies MAGA Republicans. It's all the Republicans now. Sorry, there's 98% of them. You don't need to specify. But he said that they were semi-fascist. Republicans spent like 3 months complaining that Biden called them semi-fascist, like the most tepid, light criticism he could probably come up with. But I was just thinking out top of my head, examples you could find that from Donald Trump just launching into the extensive polemic. It's saying a lot to call anything Trump says a polemic. That's kind of that word is a little strong, but I don't know, rage or whatever, or like whatever step below. He's called Democrats and liberals and progressives scum, demons, communists in the bad way, because there's nothing wrong with being a communist, but to them they're a Marxist, fascist. He's called them because of the enemy, horrible people.
Right there. He has also called us Marxist, communist, fascist.
Yes, I know. Yeah,
That's a real interesting.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, fascist commies, like because that's a thing. Degenerates and pedophiles. This is something that I stress this so much. One of the primary reasons I have no patience when someone says, well, aren't you being kind of mean to the Republicans? They have been calling us a danger to children as far as I can remember, because we have the wild idea that trans people, including trans children, are worthy of love, care, and respect rather than suspicion and ridicule. Like that's it. That's their standard right there, spreading this vicious lie that we're saying, yeah, 9-year-olds should get their genitals removed. Something nobody supports. Nobody, but they say it. Trump, how many times has Trump said this? You send little Jimmy off to school and they do a transgender surgery on him at the school with no parental consent. The least true thing spoken in this entire political campaign, and he gets away with it. So no, like I said, fuck you. I'm tired of trying to pretend I got to be nice to you folks when I get nothing. I don't get it in return.
And the thing is, as you said, asymmetry is the very important part here, because the thing is, we care about being ideologically consistent. When I go low, it's not that I'm making shit up. That's not what, when TJ says, we need to go low too, that's not what we mean. We're not lying about bullshit. But yeah, we'll just say to your face, we think this is fascism. And we will explain to you specifically why we think it is fascism. We will give you historical context. We'll talk about the ideology of a fascist. We will talk about hierarchical versus non-hierarchical worldviews. But when they say, oh, we're not fascist, they can't back it up because they don't even fucking understand what fascism is, because they think that they're capable of being both a communist and a fascist, as if those aren't two sides of like completely different ends of a political spectrum. And so it's very I do disagree. Like, I genuinely don't think Biden should say that. Like, I don't think that the president of the country should be insulting members of his own country. But I do think that he should be calling Donald Trump a fascist, and the implication that those who support him can be left unsaid. But I do also agree he stopped doing that. Like, after that rally that you're talking, I don't know, a political speech. It wasn't a rally. It was in Philadelphia. They were testing it out, and he did it at the State of the Union too, and then he stopped, and they stopped with the fascist terminology until quite recently, and they stopped with the whole like, oh, MAGA Republicans thing, they're the fascists, not the normal Republicans. They kind of stopped all that, and I do agree with Natalie that you need like a pit bull out there to go fight the other pit bulls. It doesn't mean they have to lie. It doesn't mean they have to make shit up. It doesn't mean they have to be insulting for the sake of being insulting, but we shouldn't back away from the implicit things. If we think Donald Trump is a fascist and we're going to stand on that business, yeah, if you're voting for him, I think you might be misguided. I think you might not understand fascism. I think you might not understand what you're doing. I'm willing to give you all the benefits of the doubt that there is, but at the end of the day, I think you're voting for a fascist. If that makes you feel bad, explain to me why you're not. Because you can't. Because if you could, you wouldn't be voting for him.
I think we're giving these people too much leeway. They know what they're doing. I think we need to accept that. I'm over this, John. I really am. I'm sorry. You've had almost a decade now of seeing who this man is and the kinds of things he's done, the people he's aligned himself with, how all of those people have subsequently gotten into trouble, lost their livelihoods, ended up in jail, ended up blacklisted. I mean, let's be real. They are, like I said, there is willful ignorance here. They choose to align themselves with this man because they want this. And I think the sooner that we understand what we are dealing with, the sooner we can confront it in a meaningful way where we can fight it and know what we're fighting. And I think the reality is we've been in a real social war, and only some of us have been aware of it on the left. And I think a lot of the left is waking up to recognizing that we've been in this war for a long time. But the truth of it is, regardless if Trump wins or not come November, this is not over. This, to me, is unfortunately the beginning of another level. And so, you know, I've been, oh, go ahead, TJ.
No, please.
No, I was just listening to Arnold Schwarzenegger today, and he was talking about how he's going to vote for Kamala because we need to close this chapter. We need to turn this page. It's like, dude, we need to burn this book. Like, I don't think that turning a page is a thing that we can do at this point. And I have always considered myself as somebody that can really move in many social circles, can talk to people no matter what their background or who they are, and find common ground. And I'm having a harder and harder time doing that because there are just certain lines I will not cross, and accepting someone's homophobia, transphobia, bigotry of all kind, racism, misogyny, just so I can say, well, you know, I'm a better person. That's not a thing that I'm doing at this point. I think we need to let go of that.
Yeah, that's where I am too, Natalie. I just, this is how I see it, that if you're a Trump supporter, that you've had, like, this isn't 2015 or 2016. Right. He hasn't snuck up on you. You know what you're getting this time. You knew what you were getting in 2020. And that I think if you're a Trump supporter now, you are a lost fucking cause. Like, there's nothing, and I don't respect you. Well, I respect you as a human being. I'll put it that far. Like, you deserve the same rights and privileges as every other American citizen. But that is where it ends. Your ideas and your political beliefs, they are not exempt from criticism. I will absolutely go for that. And so if you see Donald Trump on stage, which I know you have, and you see him up there saying that people like me are pedophiles, that Mexican immigrants are murderers, thieves, rapists, and I assume some of them are good people. When you see Donald Trump on stage in Minnesota leading a chant about Ilhan Omar, an American citizen who in any sane reality would be a fucking hero, like a woman who made it out of war-torn Somalia, becomes a citizen of the United States and rises all the way to Congress. Like, there should be a statue to her somewhere, but she is reviled because she's a black Muslim woman. That is it. That is the only fucking reason that she is reviled by millions of people across the country, like nationally despised. And seeing him on stage leading a chant saying, send her back, and you're fine, you're still voting with him, I don't owe you an ounce of fucking respect, and you will not get it. You won't get it. I will let you know that I think you're a garbage person because you're fine with voting for garbage people. I don't know. I'm done with it. I'm done. I have no patience whatsoever. And I wanted to bring it to Arnold Schwarzenegger too. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I saw that thing that he posted, and when I saw that, I thought, my first thought is that I can't wait to hear Donald Trump mention this. I know he's going to. He's going to. He's going to be like, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, never liked him, horrible actor, Commando, Predator, wildly overrated. The Terminator films were great in spite of Arnold, not because. I just can't wait. That's just the only weapon he has in his arsenal is like, this guy is a dog shit actor. He was a terrible governor. I got to check True Social, see if he's mentioned it, but I know he's not going to let me down. That's the one thing I can count on Trump for, just a ridiculous dragging for no good reason.
Can I just add go ahead.
No, please add.
I just wanted to add too, I think part of the reason I feel the way that I do these days is since being on KDKA radio as a female progressive voice in a sea of very conservative voices, I have been hit with the most disgusting comments on X, on Threads. I mean, things I'm not easily shocked. And some of the things that I've been seeing that are directed at me, I'm like, that's a low, like, you can't believe. So for me, I'm just over playing nice when the things that I'm talking about benefit these people too. And they can't stand to look past, the idea that a progressive younger woman is saying it to them. That is so upsetting to them that they'll say really vile things about me, about my identity and my, just my appearance, anything to try to diminish and demean the things that I'm saying that, of course, in turn would benefit them. And so that's just where I'm at personally. Working in radio has been a real game changer for me.
So I'm going to disagree with the two of you philosophically. But first I'm going to say I want so badly to agree with you. I want so bad. So many times throughout every single day nowadays, I'm like, fuck these people. I hate these people. I want to fucking beat the shit out of them. It sucks.
Yeah.
But I do have to constantly remind myself, and again, this is more just like the way I see the world. If I'm going to sit here and tell people that we need, as a society, to recognize how systemic racism could cause a disproportionate amount of young Black men to go out and commit violent crimes or end up in prison or do genuinely bad things as a result of the society in which we live, the systems that are placed around them, I think we also have to extend that to Trump supporters, people who were born and raised in rural bumfuck Indiana, who've only lived around white people their entire lives through no fault of their own, who are indoctrinated into, basically a religious cult. Are you going to tell me that them voting for Trump is any more their fault than an inner city kid who was never had food at home at night, stealing from the local fucking gas station? I
think these are false equivalencies. Because we all have access to books and we all have access to the internet and we all have access to knowledge. I understand what you're saying. I have compassion for everybody in their circumstance and what they've been exposed to. But the reality is, John, everybody has the opportunity to learn. And whether that is just going online and Googling what is systemic racism, because I heard it on X, Y, and Z podcast, that is something that is available to them. And if they don't have internet, they can go to a local library. Like, I have a hard time equating, someone who was brought up in a certain environment to someone who is an adult who has access to knowledge and is choosing, once again, is willfully ignorant because it stokes the flames of their own hateful rhetoric. And the reality is, I know a lot of people who grew up in backwater communities. My mother grew up in a very rural community in the Midwest, and she is one of the most progressive, compassionate, cool as hell people you could ever meet. So I don't want to equate one to the other. I think the reality is they need to educate themselves, and it's not my job or your job or TJ's job to do that. But if you hear something enough times, maybe you should just like put on your thinking cap for a second and say, I keep hearing about this. Maybe I'll just look at it. So that's kind of where it ends for me.
Yeah.
I agree with that on a personal level. We have no responsibility to do that for them. That's all available for them to learn. My thing is just Joe Biden, as president of the United States, whoever the president of the United States is, does have a responsibility to everyone in America to help guide them along to the right path.
Fascists more. Because I think they need,
I'm okay with calling them fascists.
Sit with that. They need to sit with that. Why are we coddling this white fragility? Because that's what this is. And they need to sit with that and understand that if they want to play in the mud with the pig that is Donald Trump, they're going to get dirty too. And it should come from the top down, because if we want to say that we are a nation for all, fascism ain't it. Authoritarianism ain't it. And if we don't squash it, we are so screwed.
Yeah. So I do understand what you're saying, John, because one thing that I do try to point out a lot is what you said is true, that it is kind of, it's an oddly conservative way to look at this, that not examining the system that created people like this. This is something like I'll see when people talk about like with feminist discourse, like if you have like a 13-year-old boy and he's saying something that, you know, he doesn't feel like he's being addressed, or he thinks the system isn't working in his favor, I'll see was like, well, who created that system? Well, not him. Okay. All right. He was born into this just like you were. All right. He didn't set up the patriarchy. Like and so we do have to recognize that. That's true. However, like you said, that's on a personal level. On a grand level, like looking at this nationwide, you know, when you hear someone up there saying, this group of people is the problem, I'm going to ban Muslim immigrants, black people are eating our fucking pets. There's nothing you're raised with that keeps you that way. That's just like, you're just fine with the bigotry. And you need to call out that bigotry and let them know that this isn't okay. And listen, there was a video game, God of War. I don't know if you play God of War 2 or Ragnarok, John, but I'm
in the middle of playing Ragnarok.
Okay, so there's a scene. Natalie, I don't know if you played it either, but John and I talk about video games all the time. So there's a scene in which Loki is talking. Loki goes to talk to Odin, and Odin is yelling at Thor, just dressing him down, just giving him the third degree, and Loki walks up and Thor kind of slumps away after Odin's been yelling at him. And Loki says, oh, so you mad at Thor? And Odin says, no, what were you talking about? It's like, well, you were just yelling at him. Like, why were you doing this? Like, oh, no, I'm not mad at him. That's just the only language he understands. That's where we are right now. Okay, that's how I see it. Is that we can dress it, because you can't say we haven't tried. You cannot say we haven't fucking tried. Like, right. In 2016, I extended an undue amount of grace to a lot of Trump supporters and say, listen, I understand the economic problems. I understand like the worry about the future. I understand that the world is changing. I understand you weren't a big fan of Hillary Clinton. Tried our fucking best. And what do we have to show for it? Like, I mean, like, a lot of people did leave. Granted, a lot of people did. But that's what I'm saying, that specifically with Trump, the ones who stuck around, there are people that can be saved. Not most of them. And the ones who can be saved are worth saving. I'm totally in favor of that. I just think that number is vanishingly small. That these days, if you're still on board with this, you're on board with it. It's not because you don't know. It's not because you don't know. You have been told, you just don't fucking care. If you're still out there saying, well, there's only two genders, we've been going over this like 5-6 years now. You know exactly the difference between sex and gender. You just don't fucking care. You know about systemic racism. You just don't fucking care. You know that, the anti-Semitism and the anti-Muslim, the Islamophobia, you know about it. You just don't fucking care. That's what I'm saying. I'm fine with a broad stroke on this, because generally it is true. In specific, it may not be, but generally it is. And I guess maybe Biden shouldn't have said garbage. But I'm not going to lose a fucking second of sleep over it. I'm not. I'm just not.
And John,
I'm not either. And
I feel bad. I didn't mean to get so hot.
No,
I did.
That was not directed at you, my darling. It was just at the ether. That was not at you. I love you.
Oh no, John Freeze?
He's
Oh, there
back.
you go.
I do think I froze a little bit. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, cool. So I have absolutely no malice towards you for saying that. I didn't think it was directed towards me, and I do recognize that of the three of us, I have the least amount of danger from these types of people, threatening me. I don't get
Wasn't going to
nearly
mention
the
it,
shit.
but there you go.
No, I mean it is true. But I do think I guess just it's one of those heart of hearts beliefs.
Yeah, I hear you.
That I don't believe 50% of America understands what Trump is and chooses it willingly. I understand that they fucking should, and it pisses me off that they don't. In my heart of hearts, I struggle to believe that many people are just literally knowingly fascist.
Does it
matter?
Does it matter? That's how I said it doesn't matter. Because let's say it was the Civil War, and it's like, oh, I just don't believe all these Confederates really want. I mean, does it fucking matter? It doesn't. I mean, they like the ends are what actually matter. How they got there, all right, we can figure that out later, but we got to solve the problem right now.
So yeah, I'm solving the problem, fucking sure. But my personal view of their morality and them as a person, I still feel like I should, until proven otherwise, right? Like there's a certain point where it's like, oh, you understand what's going on here.
Yeah, I fail
guess
to see.
what is the point?
Yeah.
Because for me, it's like there have been so many red flags, but I mean, the fact that like women are bleeding out in Texas because they can't get, they're literally dying, John.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm at that point where it's like we are now seeing literal death, mass death because of this rhetoric that led to him being in power, that led to the Supreme Court being able to gut the EPA. They've been able to gut the Voting Rights Act, which we know disenfranchises Black and brown people and working class people the most. And they've been able to destroy reproductive rights and bodily autonomy. I mean, for me, like we crossed that line when the Supreme Court was allowed to go crazy and do whatever the hell they want because Trump was placed in power. And so to give them any concessions right now feels just really dangerous, because if Trump gets back into the White House, I don't know if journalists will be allowed to exist in a year from now. One of my close colleagues, I sit on the board of Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania, and they're literally talking about what will happen if Trump gets back in office. There will be this thing that could get triggered, and we're talking about this from a legal perspective, that could be retroacted 5 years back, that could send the CEOs of Planned Parenthood to jail for racketeering. Like that's where they're trying to take us, putting political prisoners in jail. I mean, I am so over it. I'm just so over it. And so for me, I hear what you're saying. I don't want to live in a world either where Biden or any president calls people, my fellow Americans, a negative name like garbage. But what I think Biden was trying to get at, and maybe didn't articulate it as well as he could have, is that this behavior is garbage. This way of being is garbage. You as a human being are not garbage, but you cannot continue to exist in a way where you behave with such garbage intention that is actually killing people. And that's just where I sit with it.
This is also like, there are, especially, since I knew a guy who told me, he was in the Army with me, and we were talking, and he was a white guy, and he mentioned that someone that he knew in the Army invited him to join this white supremacist group called Identity Europa. And he was saying, which I had never heard of at the time. But as that was years and years, this is like during Trump's term and everything. And as time has gone on, the proliferation of white supremacist content, which not even like crypto white supremacists, they're very open about the fact that they're white supremacists. They want, non-white people expatriated from the United States. And like, if you're in conservative circles, you have heard this. You don't have to look very hard. If I've fucking seen it, you definitely have. And so knowing that there are folks out there who is like, it's unambiguous and they're open about it, I have zero problem. Calling them names is not anywhere near on my list of concerns. And there's people who have seen it, and it's not like, whatever. I really want more tax cuts for rich people, so I'm gonna overlook that. I don't really care if you're personally bad or evil, or if I'm even capable of making that judgment. I can't. Like, I don't know, in your heart of hearts, I'm not really racist in my heart. I don't fucking care. Like your actions are, well, I guess that's the way I put it. Your actions are deplorable. Your actions are garbage. Like, the actions that you are taking part in are actively damaging and killing people. Your feelings, your fifis, I just they're a second tertiary concern. That's how I see it.
So I think the reason that I separate action from process, and if you're like, yeah, no, process, these guys, might not be in like, whatever. If you're saying fuck these guys on like a process level, that's where you lose me, because you asked me what's the point? What's the point if half of America really is that far gone? Because like at that point, it's like, shit, fuck, the tankies might be right. Well, and to me, like, it has to be that only a small fraction truly understand, and a vast majority are being manipulated. Because if it's the other way around, well, fuck. I think JD Vance like tweeted this, or it was Ben Shapiro or JD Vance, and they were like, so if you actually believe Trump is Hitler, would you be okay with assassinating him? And it's like, well, yeah, like that's the only logically consistent belief. So if I'm believing that half of this country truly understands the fascism and is going along with it and choosing it, well, that's a problem.
The point to me is that I am not going to fucking pretend that these are rational people with whom I have slight ideological disagreements. I'm going to say that these are dangerous people that need to be defeated. I think it's very important to put that context out there, because
at the ballot box.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like they need to lose. I am not going to say what, because if we do that, if we say, well, let's just talk about this like it's a fucking thought experiment or something, we end up with things like what Biden has said, what Pelosi has said, what Kamala Harris recently says, that what we need is a strong Republican Party again. No, the fuck we don't. We don't need that, because that's where to me that's where that leads. If it's like, well, let's not go too far in the rhetoric here, and I'm not calling for political violence of any sort. I'm not calling for anything like that. It's just that I'm just saying that we need to stop pretending that this. Sorry, fucking stop, Wolfie. But we need to stop pretending that this is like Wolfie's getting excited about this shit too. Is that we need to just literally like decimate them at every election possible. The Republican Party. I say this without a hint of hyperbole. The Republican Party is the most dangerous institution on planet Earth for human fucking survival. Not just in the micro, when it talks about specific issues for specifically minorities in the United States, like Natalie mentioned. I saw that story about that lady in Texas who died because she had a baby, or she had a fetus she was carrying that was gonna be a miscarriage. They knew it, but they couldn't perform an abortion because the fetus was alive. And so they had to wait. I forgot how long, but they had to wait. And by the time the time the fetus actually died, she went to sepsis and she died too. People are doing this right now. So that has to go. But that's on the small scale. On the larger scale, just how with climate change, how they pretend it's not real. It's going to get millions of people killed. I don't need to pretend that this is just like some small philosophical disagreement. The Republican Party needs to I got to watch my language here. The Republican Party doesn't need to be an active political force in the United States. It's not doing anyone any good.
All right. Thank you guys so much for coming and watching this show. You made it to the end. Even if you are a Republican who we shit down your throat this whole time because the algorithm loves to send our videos to you, thank you for making it this far. I'm sure you won't like it, but maybe subscribe and hate watch a couple more of our videos. And if you want to hate watch some of Natalie's content, Natalie, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can go to TikTok and Instagram at Natalie Bencivenga. You can go to my website, www.nataliebencavanga.com. And I also host radio on kdkaradio.com every Saturday from 2 to 5. And you can check out some interviews there as well. And these two pop up every now and then. So hopefully they'll be both on very soon. So you can check me out there. And also pencapitalstar.com. I have a series called Facts Over Fear.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Folks, we really appreciate you guys joining me, John, and Wolfie for yet another show. And, we look forward to the next time Natalie interviews a famous Black musician or actor and decides to come on the show and gloat about it. So next time, hop on and we'll see what we can do. Catch you guys later. All right. That was a hell of a show.